Welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to look at the following WWE news and rumors. Paul Heyman set to turn on Roman Reigns when a former WWE champion returns. WWE legend reveals his kids cried after being attacked by the Fiend. We also going to look at the best and worst of this week's episode of WWE Smackdown, which will include former MITB winner getting pushed again, a huge mistake made with a title challenger, and more. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe for more wrestling content. The throwback special episode of Smackdown presented nothing special in terms of programming. There were a few moments that reminded us of the past, but it was primarily the set and presentation that changed. The Smackdown fist returned, but only as a graphic. The set, meanwhile, was a tribute to the 1990s. Either way, Smackdown did a lot in terms of storyline progression. While there were a few mixed moments, the show's overall pace was better than anything Raw has done recently. Smackdown has had a strong build to WrestleMania Backlash so far, and there's only one more episode before the first PPV post-WrestleMania. Here are the best and worst bits of Smackdown this week. Number 3, Best. Getting the Smackdown Women's Division ahead, there was an unofficial title eliminator match between Carmella and Ruby Riott. Carmella was the SmackDown Women's title challenger to Sasha Banks late last year and earlier this year, but she failed to win it, even with Reginald by her side. Ruby Riott was hyped by the commentators, who said that she has all the tools to become a future women's champion. While we don't doubt that, her success is going to take a while. For now, WWE will need more established superstars, and that's exactly why they went with Carmella. The former SmackDown Women's Champion picked up a clean win against Ruby Riott, potentially establishing herself as the next challenger to Bianca Belair after WrestleMania Backlash. If WWE wants to give Bianca Belair a long championship reign, a few rivalries like this with top heel challengers is exactly what's needed. While the Raw Women's division is now centered around three superstars, Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, and Asuka, SmackDown is focusing on long-term feuds. That's why it's more consistent. Number 2, Worst. Tamina looked bad on WWE SmackDown. Since a women's tag team title match will be held on SmackDown next week, WWE decided to book the match that made the most sense: Tamina vs. Reginald. We're not sure how that idea even came about, but if Reginald was facing a title challenger, wouldn't it make sense for Tamina to squash him? Instead, there was a DQ finish and the champion stood tall. While this could indicate a title change on SmackDown next week, it wasn't the right way to handle a title challenger. For a while now, even before WrestleMania, WWE kept building up Tamina as a legitimate threat to Nia Jax. They even gave her the spotlight recently on Talking Smack, but this match ruined the flow of an otherwise great build-up on SmackDown. It will be interesting to see how the tag team title match plays out next week and whether Tamina will finally get her big title win. Number 2, Best. Bayley on SmackDown. Despite taking a back seat on SmackDown on the road to WrestleMania 37, Bayley has been one of the best and most consistent aspects of the show. Even at WrestleMania, she played an unofficial host, and did a far better job than the official ones Hulk Hogan and Titus O'Neil. She cut a promo in the build to her SmackDown Women's title match at WrestleMania Backlash. Everything she did was on point. Bayley continues to evolve as a performer and improve every aspect of her game. Bianca Belair came out, but it was Bayley who laid her out and stood tall. It was great to hear Bayley's argument about why Bianca Belair and several past WWE legends aren't at her level. Bayley is a history-making champion, having held the SmackDown Women's title for 380 days. One of the best parts of Bayley's character on SmackDown is the ability she has to back up all the trash that she talks about. Number 1, Worst. 10 superstars on SmackDown wasted. SmackDown legend Teddy Long told Sami Zayn that he would be involved in a 10-man tag team match. It was confusing since it seemed like Teddy Long had to look to Sonya Deville to try and remember some names. We're not sure which bit was improvisation, and which was a part of the script. Either way, he set up the final match of the night on SmackDown, a 10-man tag team match. Sami Zayn teamed up with Alpha Academy, King Corbin, and Apollo Crews to take on Kevin Owens, Big E, Nakamura, and the Street Profits. The finish saw King Corbin hit the end of days on Nakamura. This match was lackluster, and it seemed WWE just wanted to fill the show with superstars. There are better ways to do that. There was no progression in the Intercontinental Championship picture featuring Apollo Crews, Big E, Kevin Owens, and Sami Zayn. What was the purpose of King Corbin pinning Nakamura? It achieved nothing and was a waste of a match. Number 1, Best. A fantastic main event storyline on Smackdown. So much happened in the main storyline on Smackdown. The advertised match was Cesaro vs Seth Rollins in a WrestleMania rematch. Jimmy returned to Smackdown after a year away, and his dynamic with Roman Reigns has entirely changed. After a ringside altercation, Jimmy super kicked Seth Rollins and cost him the match, officially making Cesaro the #1 contender for the Universal Championship. The main event of WrestleMania Backlash is set, but the fallout of the match was incredible. For one, we saw a rare interaction between Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Second, Jimmy refused to play second fiddle to Roman Reigns, who seemed less concerned about Cesaro and more about getting his other cousin on his side. Jimmy didn't see things the way Jay did, and the final segment was all about Roman Reigns asking whether he was with or against him. Cesaro sprung a surprise in this chaos and stood tall after attacking all three men. He looked incredible, and there's no doubt that he deserves to be in the spot. It will be his first singles match for a world title in WWE. Wrestling legend Dutch Mantel recently discussed Roman Reigns' dominance on WWE SmackDown as well as his partnership with Paul Heyman. Mantel also predicted where he felt WWE are going with this. Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman's partnership started last year, soon after Reigns returned to WWE. He quickly won the WWE Universal Championship afterward and has been dominant since, vanquishing everyone who has stepped up to him. Dutch Mantel made a bold prediction about the future of Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman's special counsel on the latest episode of Sportskeeda's Smack Talk. Mantel feels this is leading to Heyman eventually turning on Reigns and realigning with his former client, Brock Lesnar, when the Beast Incarnate returns to WWE. I'm going to bring up a thought that I had. Every time Roman Reigns is interviewed, the interviews are so serious. The camera comes in, his head's down, he's in deep thought. Then the camera pulls back and there's Heyman, looking right at Roman. He's just looking at Roman. That's going to lead somewhere. So I think, it may not be true, but I think Brock Lesnar will come back and I think Heyman will turn on Reigns and go back with Lesnar, Dutch Mantel said. Brock Lesnar's last WWE match was at WrestleMania 36 last year, where he lost the WWE Championship to Drew McIntyre, ending his title reign at 184 days. He hasn't stepped foot in a WWE ring since. Lesnar's WWE contract expired last August. We don't have an update on when we could see Lesnar back in WWE. Bray Wyatt has portrayed several different gimmicks during his WWE career, but the Fiend character is undoubtedly the scariest of the lot. There was a time when the Fiend targeted many legendary superstars. Kurt Angle was one of the legendary victims of a brutal attack from WWE's most twisted entity. During a recent edition of the Kurt Angle Show, which also featured Randy Orton as a guest, Kurt Angle revealed how his family reacted to the Fiend's storyline attack. Kurt Angle was one of the Fiend's first casualties back in 2019 when Wyatt introduced the character. The gimmick was fresh on WWE TV, and the Fiend was scheduled to face Finn Balor at that year's SummerSlam. Kurt Angle was slated to be the special guest referee for a singles match between Drew McIntyre and Cedric Alexander on the final Raw before SummerSlam. The Fiend, however, showed up and laid out Kurt Angle. The WWE Hall of Famer revealed that his kids cried after watching him get attacked on Raw. Kurt Angle's wife was also surprised by the segment, and she was quick to call him to inquire about what had happened. Even though Kurt Angle wasn't an active competitor at the time, WWE wanted him to take a bump to get the Fiend over, and the Hall of Famer had no option but to oblige. My kids, when I got attacked by the Fiend, my kids cried. They were watching on TV that night. My wife called me and said, "What the hell is going on? You know, why did they have the Fiend attack you? You're not wrestling anymore." I told her I'm doing a job. I have to do it because I'm told to, you know, so, Kurt Angle recalled. Randy Orton is the Fiend's most recognizable rival, and the Viper also revealed whether or not his children were terrified of Wyatt's character. Orton said that his youngest daughter probably doesn't understand wrestling just yet. He added that his older kids weren't startled by the Fiend as they were wrestling fans who met Bray Wyatt backstage almost 6 years ago. You know, so my youngest is 4, and I still think she thinks that Dad literally travels inside of the television to work. She doesn't really quite get it yet. You know what I'm saying? And the older kids, like they understand what it is. And it doesn't help as far as them being afraid, especially the boys. They have met Bray. He was one of the first WWE wrestlers that they met, and this was like 6 years ago, so they have been fans their entire lives, Orton said. It's safe to say that the Fiend would have surely given several kids sleepless nights back when kayfabe was still strong.